Hello. Today we're starting a new series on Mercury in the signs. Mercury is often reduced to communication, intellect, and the way someone speaks. That is true, but it only tells part of the story. In a chart, Mercury shows how your mind takes in the world, how it organizes experience, and how it turns observation into meaning. It describes the way you think, the way you learn, the way you ask questions, and the way you try to make sense of what is happening around you. It also reveals how you explain yourself, how you solve problems, how you listen, and what kind of information your mind naturally looks for. This is why Mercury is not only about talking. It is about perception. It is about interpretation. It is about the mental rhythm you move through life with, whether you realize it or not. Two people can hear the same thing and walk away with completely different conclusions. One notices the facts. Another notices the tone. One wants the big picture first. Another needs details before anything makes sense. One speaks quickly because the ideas are arriving all at once, while another takes more time because they want every word to be precise. That difference is not random. Mercury explains it. The sign Mercury is in shows how the mind takes shape. It changes the thinking style, the communication pattern, and the way a person gathers, sorts, and shares information. Some Mercury placements think out loud and discover their point while speaking. Others need silence first because the mind wants to organize everything internally before anything is said. Some communicate directly and immediately. Others communicate carefully, indirectly, or with more nuance. Some learn through movement and discussion. Others learn through repetition, reflection, or analysis. The same applies to decision-making, misunderstanding, and mental stress. Mercury shows what your mind returns to by default. It shows how you process pressure, where your thinking becomes sharp or scattered, where you may over-explain, overthink, shut down, or miss what is right in front of you because your attention is trained in a certain direction. It also shows your natural intelligence, not in a shallow or one-dimensional way, but in the way your mind actually works when it is engaged, curious, and alive. In the natal chart, the sign shows the style, the house shows where Mercury is most active, and the aspects show whether the mind moves with ease, tension, speed, intensity, or contradiction. So in this series, we're starting with the sign. We're going to look at how Mercury operates in each sign, how it thinks, how it learns, how it communicates, what it needs in order to stay clear, and where it can get trapped in habits of thought that stop being useful. No recycled keywords, no flat stereotypes, and no treating people like a single trait. Just how the placement actually works. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to follow the series, and book a consultation for a more personal understanding of your chart. Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Gemini gives the mind range. This is one of the signs where Mercury operates with unusual ease, because Gemini is one of Mercury's own signs. The result is a style of thinking that is quick, curious, adaptable, and highly responsive to whatever is happening in the immediate environment. In astrology, Mercury describes perception, language, learning style, reasoning, memory, and the way a person connects pieces of information into something usable. In Gemini, those functions become lighter, faster, and more mobile. The mind wants movement, variety, and contact with ideas, people, observations, and possibilities. The person may pick up shifts in tone, passing details, side comments, contradictions, and connections that other people miss because they are focused on only one line of thought. Gemini has a natural relationship to pattern recognition, especially in real time. It can move between topics quickly, compare one thing to another, and keep several threads in motion. Thought here is usually less linear than it is associative. One idea leads to another, and often the person is arriving somewhere meaningful even if the route looks scattered from the outside. This placement does not always think by drilling downward into one subject for hours. It often thinks by linking, contrasting, questioning, sampling, and testing. Information is gathered through motion. That kind of intelligence can look effortless, but it is not shallow by default. It is simply fast and flexible. The person often learns through exposure, conversation, repetition, and comparison. They may understand a subject more quickly once they have heard it explained in a few different ways, played with it a little, talked it through, or connected it to something they already know. Curiosity does much of the work here. Gemini is an air sign, mutable in quality, ruled by Mercury itself. Air gives abstraction, language, and conceptual movement. Mutable signs adjust, translate, experiment, and respond to changing conditions. With Mercury in Gemini, those traits combine into a mind that usually wants options more than fixed conclusions and exploration more than certainty. The person often keeps thinking while talking and talking while thinking. Language becomes part of the process, not only the final result. Many people with Mercury in Gemini have a natural feel for phrasing, timing, rhythm, and conversational flow. They may speak quickly, but more importantly, they tend to know how to keep language moving. There's usually an instinct for how to frame something, shift tone depending on the audience, explain an idea in accessible terms, or keep an exchange alive when everyone else has gone flat. This can make them strong writers, teachers, speakers, interviewers, hosts, translators, storytellers, and observers of social reality. This sign is quick enough to catch the double meaning, the contradiction, the odd timing, the revealing slip, or the absurdity in the room. What often comes from speed, but also from distance. Gemini can stand just far enough back from an experience to notice the strange angle in it and say something that lands immediately. Conversation matters a great deal to this placement, not only because the person likes to talk, though some certainly do, but because talking is one of the ways the mind works things out. A discussion can become a laboratory. A question can open three more. A passing remark can trigger a new line of thought. There is usually genuine interest in people's opinions, not always because Gemini wants to agree with them, but because every perspective adds data. That is one of the strengths of the sign. It is often open to information that other placements dismiss too early. It can try on a viewpoint, test it, turn it over, and set it next to another without feeling immediately threatened. This gives flexibility, social intelligence, and the ability to navigate different kinds of environments. Mercury in Gemini can often speak to many different people because it knows how to adjust the language without losing the point. A mind that stays open can also stay unsettled. Mercury in Gemini may keep too many windows open at once. It can move into distraction, inconsistency, nervous overstimulation, or a habit of skimming across the surface because there is always another interesting thought nearby. The person may know a little about many things and have trouble staying with one thing long enough to let it deepen. Mercury in Gemini is often accused of being superficial, but that criticism usually misses the actual pattern. The issue is not lack of intelligence. The issue is dispersion. The mind is active enough to keep generating movement, and without some discipline, that movement can pull attention in too many directions. The person may start 5 thoughts, answer 3 messages, remember 2 unrelated facts, and halfway through all of that find something else more interesting. This placement often picks things up quickly, particularly if the subject is dynamic, varied, or mentally stimulating. Repetition without movement can feel deadening. Overly rigid presentation can make the mind drift away. It does well when there is room to ask questions, compare ideas, make connections, and stay mentally active. At the same time, the person may need to learn how to stay with material after the first excitement fades. Initial interest is not the problem. Sustained attention can be. The sign may understand the outline of something almost immediately, which is useful, but that early familiarity can create the illusion that the subject has already been mastered. Then the mind moves on, even when there was much more to learn. Not forced heaviness, not becoming rigid or humorless, just learning how to remain with an idea long enough for it to become substantial. The mature version of Mercury in Gemini keeps the freshness, quickness, and adaptability, but adds follow-through. Then the placement becomes formidable, because now the person is not only bright, they are developed. In conversation, this sign usually values responsiveness, mental presence, and exchange. It does not thrive in environments where nobody is saying anything interesting, where people refuse to engage, or where every interaction feels heavy before it has even begun. It likes questions, observations, references, wordplay, and a sense that the interaction is alive enough to evolve. That does not mean this Mercury is insincere. It means the person often discovers sincerity through process rather than through solemnity. Some people think seriousness proves depth. Gemini does not always work that way. A light tone can still carry a real point. Humor can coexist with intelligence. A fast conversation can still reveal something meaningful. Because the mind here is so quick, communication style can shift depending on context. Mercury in Gemini often knows how to adjust to different audiences, different topics, and different rooms. It may sound one way with close friends, another way at work, another way when trying to explain something to a stranger. That does not necessarily mean the person is fake. More often it means they are perceptive. They know that language is relational. Still, there can be a drawback to that adaptability. The person may become so used to changing tone, changing register, or exploring multiple positions that other people are not always sure where they truly stand. Mercury in Gemini can speak from several angles so easily that commitment becomes less visible. In some cases, the person is still deciding. In other cases, they enjoy the movement so much that settling on one answer feels limiting. Mercury in Gemini needs mental engagement. Without that, connection often fades quickly. The person usually wants someone who can respond, notice, question, and keep the exchange active. Silence is not always a problem, but dead air often is. They tend to feel closer through talking, sharing observations, comparing thoughts, and letting conversation move naturally from one subject to another. This placement often struggles with communication that feels stagnant, overly repetitive, or emotionally fixed in one tone. It usually wants room for play, flexibility, and some freshness in the exchange. At the same time, one of its lessons is learning that not every meaningful conversation will be exciting. Some truths are slower. Some discussions require patience, stillness, and fewer mental escape routes. Under stress, the nervous side of the sign becomes more obvious. Thoughts speed up further. The person may talk too much, think in circles, jump topics, lose the thread, or become mentally scattered. Anxiety can take the form of constant mental motion. If the mind does not know what to do with the extra energy, it may fill the silence with speculation, chatter, or overanalysis of things that do not actually need that much attention. This is one of the reasons grounding matters so much for Mercury in Gemini. The placement does not necessarily need less input forever, but it does need intervals where the mind can sort, filter, and rest. Otherwise, intelligence starts turning into static. It notices quickly, learns rapidly, adapts easily, and keeps the language moving. It can explain difficult material in ways people understand. It can gather information from all kinds of sources. It can translate, connect, compare, and respond with unusual speed. There is often an instinctive understanding that knowledge is not a monument. It is a living exchange. The weaknesses are real. This placement can become distracted, fragmented, evasive, inconsistent, or too enamored with novelty. It can stay in words when something deeper is required. It can move away from discomfort by changing the subject instead of staying with what matters. But those are not the whole story. They are simply the places where the gift needs discipline. Mercury in Gemini is here to keep the mind open, language active, and perception in motion. It reminds us that intelligence is not only about solidity or certainty. It is also about responsiveness, versatility, timing, curiosity, and the ability to keep learning because nothing has been declared finished too soon. At its most developed, this placement gives a person mental flexibility, verbal skill, strong observational ability, and a rare gift for making thought move between people. It can carry information beautifully. It can make conversation illuminating. It can turn knowledge into something social, alive, and shareable. Mercury in Gemini does not want thought to become fixed too early. It wants room to ask, answer, compare, revise, and keep discovering. When that openness is matched with focus, The result is one of the most intelligent and expressive Mercury placements in the zodiac. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to follow the series, and book a consultation for a more personal understanding of your chart.